Good day everyone. So for today's video we'll be reporting about programming. So we have different types of programming. So we have different types of programming using the different types of languages. We have the C language, C++, we have Python, we have JavaScript, and so forth. So to start the introduction of our report on the programming world, you can begin by providing a brief overview of the importance of programming in today's technology-driven society. You might want to mention some key points, like the role of programming in software development. It is important also to us. Its impact on the various industry and ever-evolving natures of programming languages and technologies. So, here's an example. So, welcome to the world of programming, where the lines of code shape the digital landscape of our modern world. In an era defined by technology, programming is the foundation upon the innovation, automation, and digital transformations. Our belt, these reports delves into the dynamic realm of programming, exploring its significant evolution and the key trends that are shaping programs landscape today.
Next is the constant, variables, and data types in programming. Do you have any idea what is constant, variable, and data types in programming? Well, I will let you know. Constants are values that do not change during the execution of a program. They are fixed and cannot be modified once defined. In coding C, you can define constant using the keyword const. For example, const space int space max underscore value equals 100. In Python, you can create constant by defining variables in uppercase to indicate their constant nature, although Python doesn't enforce constant behavior. In Python, you cannot use the keyword const. For example, capital max underscore value equals 100. Next to discuss is the variables. Variables are memory location used to store data that can change during the execution of a program. In coding C, you declare variables with a data type and a name. For example, int space age equals 25 and the semicolon sign. In Python, you don't need to declare variables data type explicitly. It is determined by dynamically. For example, age equals 25 number sign, a variable storing an integer. Next is data type. Data types specify the type of data that a variable can hold. Encoding C has several data types, including the int, used for integer. Example of this is int space count equals 5 semicolon sign. Next is float, used for floating point numbers. Example of this is float price equals 19.99. Next is char, used for single characters. Example of this is char space initial equals m semicolon sign. And lastly is the double used for double precision floating point numbers. Example of this, double precision equals 3.141 5926 5359, comma. Next is data type in Python. Data type in Python represent a kind of data that can be stored in variables. Here are some data types in Python. First is the integer or int, whole numbers without a decimal point. Example of this is age equals 25. Next of the integer is float, numbers with a decimal point. For example, price equals 19.99. Next is string or str. Textual data enclosed in single or double quotes. For example, name equals Bob with a double quote sign. Next is boolean or bool, represents true or false values. Example is underscore student equals true. Next is list, an ordered collection of elements. Example of this is fruits equals open square braces, apple with a double quote sign, comma, banana with a double quote sign, comma, cherry with a double quote sign, and the closing square braces. Tuple, similar to a list but immutable or cannot be changed after creation. Example of this is coordinate equals open parenthesis 5, comma, 3, close parenthesis. Next is dictionary or dic, a collection of key value pairs. Example, person equals open curly braces, name with a double quotation, tutulduq Eve with a double quotation, comma, age with a double quotation, tutulduq 30 with a close curly braces. And lastly is set, an unordered collection of unique elements. Examples, unique underscore numbers, open curly braces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, close curly braces. And that are some common data types in Python and Coding C. They allow you to work with different kinds of data in your programs.
So we have the three types of the data types, which is the constant, the variable, and the data types. So way back in the discussion of Ma'am Adriel lesson, we saw the basic structure of C program by writing and executing a simple program to print hello world on screen. So another example of calculating simple entries is the input principal P slash rate of entries and time in years and T close parenthesis and entries is equal to Px 8 times T is over 100. So that is the task of calculating simple interest. The data that we will work upon will be principal amount will be positive number. So right now we're gonna look forward for the other program, which is one of that is the operators. The operators are the symbols or the keywords used to perform operations on data. So the example of that is the arithmetic operator and also the comparison operators. So if we're gonna see arithmetic operators, that is the one that we say MDAS. MDAS is for addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction. So that is the one that very important in programming. And if we're gonna see comparisons operators, there is some types of equal, greater than, less than. That's the part of example also. And the last one also is we're just using logical operators. So the example of logical operators is and, the semicolon, and everything, because without that one, there's a tendency that the program will not run and it can cause syntax error.
Control flow in C programming is typically managed using various constructs. So here's an overview of some common control flow structures in C. Sequential execution. Code is executed line by line from top to bottom. Conditional statements. If statement is used to execute a block of code if a condition is true. Else statement is optionally used with F to execute code when the condition is false. Else if statement is used for multiple conditions checks. Switch statement is used for multi-way branching based on the value of an expression. Loops. While loop repeats a block of code while a condition is true. For loop is used for iterating a specific number of times. Do while loop is similar to while, but the condition is checked after the loop body. Break and continuous statements. Break exits the current loop or switch statement. Continue skips the current iteration of a loop and continues with the next. These control flow structures allow you to create complex and dynamic behavior in a C programs, making it possible to control how your code executes under the different conditions.
Hi, good morning everyone. This is Niljan Habel. I'm introducing to you the execution. Execution in a producer-oriented language such as a language C. The execution always begins from main. Main functions, that's why it's also called the entry point for our programs control. If any code does not follow syntax or compilation, error will be generated. For example, someone siya ang execution nagsugod gid siya sa int main kani. If kanang int main mawala or na siya missing one, dili mo run ang ato ang program. Na siya similarity sa debugging or sa running. Pero ang nakalahi lang gud sa running or debugging, ang debugging if ang kaning word mo mawala, ibutang na to. For example, wala akong kuning kani, wala akong kuna inigra na to, oops, may makagawas, dili siya pwede. But ang execution gun sa ato ang topic karon, nag-start lagi siya sa include stdio o sa int main. Mao na siya. Thank you.
First, you need to write your C program or paste the program. Execute the program or run your C program by entering the following command in the terminal. View the output. If your program produces any output, it will display in the terminal.
So without that one, there's a tendency that the program will not run and it can cause syntax on an error. So right now, we're gonna continue to the control flow. So control flow refers to the order in which statements of instructions are executed in a program. Just for example, conditional statement. It else for making decisions in code. So there is a loops, there is for, there is while, there do, there while for specific tasks. So they have different tasks to do while using the control flow. Because without control flow, there's a tendency on your programming it will not be processed. The program will not be run. There's a tendency it will be debugging. So there's also a switch statements used for multi-way branching in code. So that one is very important because it will not be important. There's a tendency that when you're gonna send a message or something, it will not directly come on that messages. To be continued for the executable code. Executable code is the code that can be run and executed by computers processors. Like for example, in a C++ program, the code within the main function is executable code. That's the most important because If you don't have program, there's a tendency that your computer will not run, your computer will not on. So we need to have a program so that it will be functions, it will function. Executable code is also known as a machine code or a binary code. There are some example on that. Machine languages as a binary code, assemble language, complied programs, scripts, interpreted languages, bytecode or intermediate code, and the scripting engines. That is the different types of executable codes that we're gonna use in programming. Without that, we cannot proceed or we cannot process the programs in the computer.
Conclusion about all programming operators. In programming, operators are fundamental elements that enable us to perform various operations on data. They come in different categories, including arithmetic, relational, logical, bitwise, assignment, and more. Arithmetic operators handle mathematical calculations, while relational operators are used for comparisons. Logical operators deal with Boolean values and perform logical operations. Bitwise operators work on individual bits of binary numbers. Assignment operators are used to assign values to variables, while conditional or ternary operators provide a compact way to make decisions, and special operators like increment and decrement change the value of a variable. Understanding and effectively using operators is essential for writing efficient and accurate code. They allow us to manipulate data, make decisions, and control the flow of program. Mastery of these operators is a key skill for any programmers.